I am Kim Kral. I am reporting to you not live from my closet. I think we're going to come out of the gate with a poop scoop. And it's not really a story that's happening, but it may be something that we may have a poop scoop on Crawl Space in real time. I have really bad diarrhea. Yep, that's what's happening. It's, I don't know why. I do. I have irritable bowel syndrome. Obviously, I have that. I mean, I get like we're off and running. Hi, welcome everybody. I have tried to start this podcast now for the last 30 minutes, and I am just peeing out of my butthole. I've never said butthole before. Gross. I love that gets me, but the other does not. God damn it. What is like? And let me just tell you, okay, there's a few thoughts because this is going to be the poop scoop for this week because it's not just like maybe I'll poop my pants not live from my closet. I hope not. I feel like that'd be a nightmare to poop in here. The smell alone, you know what I mean? I feel like you wouldn't be able to get rid of that. Gross. I'm really sorry. I'm not sorry, but I feel like society has told me I'm supposed to say sorry for saying things like that. What I want to say is, I will say when people are like I said, this is like half funny, half PSA, half like I feel you if you have this problem. Like 17 years ago, I knew I had IBS and I told a doctor, but 17 years ago, it was just internet fluff or whatever. It was just like few doctors knew what it was. And so when you went to your doctor and said you had this, you were dismissed, right? And there's a lot of stuff that like I haven't done my research on what stuff, but I know a lot of people I know who have like autoimmune disorders. They were dismissed for like years and years. And then the medical, I've said it before, and I've dealt with this so much with COVID, is just like, I understand that you took a class about this once 15 years ago, but I have lived in this body now for 30, almost 9 years. I know it's not, and this body has been doing this the whole time, but I tried to get help like 17 years ago from my doctor, and she basically told me it wasn't real. She said that IBS was something that was made up. The internet wasn't like super big then. God. I don't feel old, and I'm not old, and I will not waste my youth calling myself old. I try to like tell people that I have a lot of stuff going on in my brain. We already started a bunch of stories that I don't even know if we'll be able to finish. Just kidding. But so I went to her and I was just like, yeah, this is what's happening. And I like explained all the stuff that happens with my body and when you have IBS. And I was like, I looked it up and, my dial-up internet, because that's what I had back then. And I was like, I looked it up and this is what it said. And she was like, no, that's not real. It's just on the internet. That's not a medically accurate term or whatever. She was super dismissive. And then she told me to quit drinking, quit smoking cigarettes, and quit drinking coffee. Now, I didn't really drink coffee that much back then, but I was a 21-year-old girl who chain smoked and partied a ton, right? So I was like, oh, those two things aren't an option. And I know right now you're probably thinking like, well, maybe that's why your body's all fucked up. No, my body's really fucked up because I had bathroom stuff as a child, and my father, I had to hold my bathroom quite a bit as a child. With my dad wouldn't stop on road trips. I had to poop, and I would hold my bathroom for hours. And then I also abuse laxatives to help me poop because I never pooped. There's all kinds of things, but it's not because I was a big party girl back in the day. Maybe it probably fueled it a little bit, but I will tell you now, I don't smoke cigarettes. I drink a cup of coffee a day, if that. And I don't really drink anymore. So like, I don't think anyway, she like really dismissed me and just gave me a list of shit I shouldn't eat. And now here we are. So what I am going to do is, because I've been on my feet for 3 days, I had some, freelance jobs. I did a wild thing last night. I'll tell you guys all about that. I forgot about that until just this moment. But I've been pretty active for the last 3 days in like jobs and like standing up. And today my breathing is so fucked up, man. It's so fucked up. So I switched insurances, and now it's just on me to find a new doctor. And I'm with Kaiser. And I know some like people have really strong opinions about Kaiser. Everything I've read, people fucking love them or they fucking hate them. There's like no in between. So I'm hoping I fall under the love them camp. But I switched over to them, and now I'm trying to find a new doctor. And hopefully this new doctor will help me with my poopy stuff and my breathy stuff. I don't know why I said it like that. I'm really sorry. Please keep listening to me. Um, but like the poop scoop is, so I've had diarrhea for the better part of like 3 hours now, which is just a nightmare. But I've been trying to start this episode for like 30 minutes at this point. I think it might have subsided. I'm not sure. But the poop scoop for us, the poop scoop, we're starting out with a poop scoop this week. Is that I think we should normalize a reason to be late is that you were blowing out a toilet. But I think we should all agree as a society that we don't get to use it if it's not real. So it doesn't fuck it up for people who are actually late because they're blowing out a toilet. You know what I mean? Like now, if you like really don't feel well and you don't want to make plans and you're like, my head really hurts, I don't feel well. That's been lied about so many times by humans that most of the time people don't believe you when you're like, oh, I don't feel well. That's why I can't make it. People are like, yeah, bitch just didn't want to go. But sometimes you really don't feel well, right? And so I feel like we should make a social agreement and then maybe a code word. This is if I ruled the world. If I ruled the world. If I ruled the world, that's what we would have. We would have a code word and an agreement as a society that we would never lie about it. And if you lied about it, you'd have to sleep in an outhouse for 4 days. I don't know why 4 days, and I don't know where this outhouse would be, and I don't know who would enforce that. But I'm just saying, like, it'd have to be like, because that way, the amount of times I've been late for something because I have this irritable syndrome, I guess. I don't know. So I have an inside problem, right? And the amount of times I've been late because of it, and not even like 20 minutes late, or like I had this old boss at this the nightclub I worked at, and she was the manager, and I texted her one day and I was just honest because I was just like, right before I left, I all of a sudden had diarrhea, and like that happens to me a lot. Sorry, is this 7 minutes in? Diarrhea. Remember that song, Diarrhea? Diarrhea. That song used to make me laugh so hard. When you're sliding into first and you feel something burst, diarrhea. This is why I'm almost 39 and alone. No, I don't think that's why. I'm awesome. So I like text her and I was just honest. I was like, hey girl, I'm going to be late. I can't stop pooping and I will be there as soon as I can. But like, there's literally nothing I can do. Like my body was like, I'm going to shit now and there's nothing I can do and it's not stopping. And I've just been anchored to my toilet for 30 minutes. And she was like, yuck. But if I was like, hey, I'm just running behind, it's none of your business why I'm running behind because, you know, I'm an adult human and I'll be there when I be there. And I know I have to work and I know that that's my job, that I like agreed to show up on time or whatever. But like, if I just said that, then she'd be pissed. But the fact that I told her the truth, she was like super grossed out. And I don't know. I just think, I don't know what the saying would be, but I really believe, I mean, we've all been like, I'm on the toilet, I'm anchored to it, I can't get off, and I'm supposed to be at a place in 10 minutes. And there's no way I'm going to get there in 10 minutes. And when I get there, I'm going to have to come up with something other than what actually happened, which is a viable excuse as to why I am late. Like it's understandable. Everybody can relate to it. It's our bodies are finicky things. Even if you don't have IBS, they're finicky things. And so like, every one of us can relate to being like, I couldn't stop shitting and I don't know why. I was just, my tummy started rumbling and I just could not stop shitting. I don't know if this is relatable. And if it's not, then maybe I really do need to find the doctor quicker than I think I do. I think I need to find it pretty quick because the whole breathing situation is just not, dude, it's not getting better. I mean, it's not like where it was when I had COVID or like the couple of months afterwards, but it's just like kind of plateaued where it just sort of sucks, you know? So I probably need a doctor anyway. And then when my old shitty doctor, that wouldn't see me with COVID, not with COVID, but months after I had COVID and was still having a hard time breathing, they still sent me to the ER. They wouldn't let me in the office, which is wild, fucked up. When I tried to explain to them what was happening in my body, they just pulled out a prescription pad, not a subscription, but a prescription. Sometimes I don't remember which is which, or I say them too quickly. And was just trying to like write me a bunch of prescriptions. And I was just like, I think that that's a Band-Aid for something that's happening. And then they just like, not all doctors, but every doctor I've dealt with in the last year. And then this one was just like, rolled their eyes like, oh, great, a patient's going to tell me that I don't know what I'm doing. And like, I get like that must be frustrating because I know that you do go to a lot of school for being a doctor. But I think, I don't know, when I was in the ER the second time, I like had to break down and start crying to the guy because he was so fucking dismissive. And I was just like, please help me. I cannot breathe. And when I go to bed at night, I'm like, I hope I wake up in the morning. And like, I had to like cry and yell in order for this fuck face to fucking listen to me. And then he finally like, and he was like standing and hovering above me. And then he finally sat down and listened. He also was pretty dismissive too. And then after that, he like didn't do what he said he was going to do. And I didn't realize it until I got home. Whatever. That's a long story. And it's probably in an episode somewhere and I don't want to rehash it, but it's just really frustrating. But the poop, so I feels like the diarrhea has subsided. I really hope it has. I got shit to do tonight. Not that kind of shit. I love it when I do that. But I got stuff to do. But I think that and then just have like a code word. And then like, again, like an unspoken promise to each other that we will only use it if it's real. Like you can't use it if, you just like left late. You have to only use it if you genuinely are blowing out a toilet. And I don't know what that word should be, but it's just like one of those things, like how many times, like, I don't know. I have a problem. My body is not, doesn't function properly with that. But like, I know a lot of people are like, yeah, I pooped my pants and then I had to be late. And then I had to make up another excuse that wasn't as good as the real reason. Cause the real reason is like, I shit my pants. I had to go home. And yeah, so yesterday I worked this event and, I was all set to be on time. In fact, I was going to be like 20 minutes early because it was like a new, it was at LA Live and I've only been to LA Live, I think like once in all the time I've lived here. So I was just like, I'll get down there like 20 minutes early just to make sure that I park and I get up there on time. Like, whatever. I haven't worked in a long time. So I just want to make sure. And so I'm all set to leave on time. And then all of a sudden my stomach's like, nah, we're going to shit for a bit. And did that rhyme, shit bit? That's fun. And then I pooped for a little bit and then I was just on time. But like I was driving there and I was like beating myself up for not being on time. And like, I was just like, you motherfucker. And then I was like, why are you beating yourself up? What were you going to do? Were you going to get in the car and just shit your pants all the way down to the event? And then you'd have a whole new set of problems on your hands. Like, so I just think I've already said it 4 or 5 times, but I really believe that we should normalize that somehow. I don't know. Are we too far into society? Because I feel like society we're pretty hell bent on being secretive about our poop. Like people are like, oh my God, Kim's so open about her poop. And it's like, it's not like I have it's not like I'm the only one that has gross shit come out of them. And everyone's like, what happens to you? Every living thing, I don't know if that's real, but most living things gets rid of waste somehow, and that waste doesn't smell great, and that waste isn't like I don't know. I just feel like maybe we've come too far of just being, and I probably wouldn't find poop as funny as I do if we weren't so hell bent on hiding it. You know what I mean? Like if we weren't so ashamed of that we poop, like everybody poops and everyone's super ashamed about it, or you like keep it secret or whatever. And like, if we didn't do that, I probably wouldn't find it as funny as I do. Maybe, I don't know. But I think it's just people will do whatever they can to not talk about it. And we all fucking do it. There's that book, Everybody Poops. So I worked this event last night. It was a nightmare. It was fine. I work these like little events where either I like bartend, or last night I was an usher at a fucking movie premiere, and it's like the 3rd movie premiere that's happened in LA since COVID, right? So it was like a really big deal. But the theater itself, like they had the rules of the social distancing where every other row was blocked off, and our job was, and there was theater people there too to help us enforce that. But the amount of people that would yell at the theater people, and then I come over and just because I dressed in like an official thing, they're like, oh, but a lot of people did. A few people yelled at me too. And it's so funny because it's like, dude, the world ended. You should have gotten here earlier. And it's so interesting to me because and every person I know that's worked in Hollywood and has worked in like the restaurant business or any kind of customer service business in New York or LA, like where the celebrities are, every single one of us will agree that all of the somebodies, the people that are crazy famous, are so kind and so cool and never ask for free shit, don't care where they sit. They're always awesome. And then it's always the guy that has like a part in a play or a part in the movie who's like, do you know who the fuck I am? And it was exactly the way it was last night. And I'm really bad at celebrities. Like, so I can't tell you who this guy was. Like the guy that I was working with, I was like, oh my God, Mark Curry's over there. And he's like, Mark Curry. I'm like, hey, with Mr. Cooper, come on. And then another kid comes in and he's the little boy from Blackish. And I was like, oh my God, the kid from Blackish. And Snoop Dogg was there too. So of course I know Snoop Dogg and I was really excited about that. But then like 3 other dudes came in that I had no idea. And I was like, I don't know who that is. He goes, you have the weirdest celebrity radar. Like, you know who the kid is from Blackish? I'm like, huge fan. Love that show. That kid's really talented. And he's like, and Mark Curry. And I'm like, and so like the star of this movie that, I don't know if I signed anything or not, if I can even tell you, but the star of this movie is super famous, I guess, and I have no idea who he is, but he was so fucking cool and so fucking nice. And like, he comes in and we're like, so basically like what happened was the people who set up the, like the seating chart, like, so every talent and producer was supposed to have, it was really funny. One of the executive producers didn't give a fuck where he sat, but his girlfriend, before he came over, she was like, do you know who my boyfriend is? And like, yell. And I was like, COVID doesn't care who your boyfriend is. The CDC, the LA regulations, like no one cares who your boyfriend is. You need to sit in seats that aren't like no one, even Snoop Dogg was like, you can't sit in this row. And he was like, cool, I understand. The world ended. 500,000 people in this country alone died. Like, I got yelled at a little bit last night but I also like, at first I was a little freaked out and then I forgot I could put on Bartender Kim, or I'm like, I don't have to like. And as soon as I had Bartender Kim on, everything was fine. Like some woman started yelling at me because she couldn't sit in one of the rows. I just walked away because like she wasn't listening to me and she was just yelling at me. And I just walked away. And then she sat and like 52 other things were going on. So I forgot all about that bitch. And by the way, no, that's not true. And then when the one of the guys that worked at the theater came up to me and he's like, that woman over there told me that you said she could sit there. I'm like, why on fucking earth would I tell this random ass woman that no one knows, that you're not even in the fucking movie, that you got invited because you're the sister or brother of the cousin of the person in the movie or some shit, right? I was like, why would I tell her she could sit there? So I walked up to her and I was like, you can't sit in this row. She goes, you fucking told me I could. And I was like, actually, I told you you couldn't. And she's like, well, I don't. And I was like, I don't know what else to tell you. You're not allowed to sit in this row. So like, find a seat or you're not going to get a seat and they're going to ask you to leave because you're not Snoop Dogg. Sorry that, but like, it was so funny. So then like the star of the show, who's just this handsome young black dude in the coolest powder blue suit. He was just so kind. Right. And his girlfriend was like smoking hot. And so they come up to me and they're like, hi, I'm so-and-so. I really couldn't tell. And he looked at me kind of, I was like, what's your name? He like looked at me like, but he gave me his name. And, I looked at it and I was like, oh, okay, you're going to be over here. And he was like, well, I have 10 people. And I was like, oh, and I looked at my boss and was like, he has 10 people. We only have him for like 5 seats or whatever. And he goes, that's fine. He's like, well, just take 5. We don't have to sit together. Just like 5, sit these 5 people here and then you can sit me anywhere. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Just let's, I understand what you guys are just doing your job. It's cool. And it's just so funny because another guy was like, so basically they had the seating chart for everybody. I don't know if this is interesting or not, but here we are. I think I say this every week and the listeners are up and down, but the ones that listen every week, you always listen. And I'm really, really grateful for you guys. So I think it must be interesting. Now I'm having some sort of existential crisis in my closet, but I'm not pooping my pants. And that's a thing, right? So I think, and then one guy, so basically like they had like the woman who ran the event who, it was her first event. And it was just like, you think if it was your very first event and it was like the 3rd premiere of, the world reopening, you would be extra like, I mean, like I have OCD and I'm like type A sometimes. And like, so like you would think that, and I have anxiety, but she was just like, oh, it's my first one. I don't know. And so she set up the fucking, the seating chart for everybody that was like talent, producers, director, everybody, right? Like every single talent had their seats and their plus ones or whatever. And everybody that like RSVP'd had seats, but they didn't tell her that they were doing every other row. So she comes in like, I'm going to say 30 minutes before the fucking theater's about to set, right? Like I'm that's being generous. I think it was shorter. And it's like, okay, well, we got to put all these up. I was like, well, what do we do for the ones that aren't on the right rows? So then we had to, so it was basically like just make sure the main people, like the powder blue suit guy, Snoop Dogg, I think Danny Trejo. Yeah, Danny Trejo, the guy who has all the donut shops and taco shops. I know he's like a movie star. I'm so bad at famous people. He was in it, and then the director, but it was like everybody else, it's just going to be general admission, and you're just got like every little part or whatever is just going to be general admission, and that's just how it's going to have to go, right? Which is a nightmare, especially for like the smaller roles are like, do you know who I am? And it's always that way. Like you'll read about Leonardo DiCaprio and like people who work in clubs. I've heard this many times about him, where it's like the nobody, and I don't mean nobodies, I'm not trying to be a dick, but I mean like non-celebrities, like the woman who was like came in third on Rock of Love will still go to a bar and be like, do you know who the fuck I am? I am Daisy, or whatever. She came into Big Wings a few times. I think she came in second. I don't remember. But like, actually, it was Heather that came in. I think she won. Doesn't matter. I was a big Rock of Love fan, but she would be like, do you know who the fuck I am? And it's like, you're Big Wings. Fuck off. But like Paul Walker came into Big Wings one time and just, rest in peace, and just sat and ordered wings and wasn't like, I should get a free bill. And like, you hear that about Leo, like Leonardo DiCaprio will just go and sit in the corner and not be like, I'm Leonardo DiCaprio and I should get free shit. Another friend of mine was a waitress at a spot, and Brad Pitt came in with his agent, and his agent was super dismissive and rude. And when she she wasn't Brad Pitt's server, but she was walking by Brad Pitt's table, and the agent grabbed her and was like, ma'am, I asked you for some water out like an hour ago or something like that, something super not true and rude. And she was like, oh, and Brad Pitt goes, so-and-so, that's not our server. That's a different girl. I'm so sorry, miss. Can you get us some water when you get a chance? And no hurry. Or it was just like it's like the people who are like, I'm somebody. And that's exactly what happened last night. So this guy comes in. And so it's like, if it doesn't have, I don't know, I was super confused, my OCD, but as soon as I was like, none of this matters. Literally none of it matters. You know what I mean? Like here I am today. I got paid. They said we did a good job. I made some friends, and I'm sitting here trying not to poop my pants while recording my podcast. So it's, it's just another manic Monday. Just another manic Monday. It's just another magic Monday. So what was I saying? Oh yeah. So this guy comes in and he says his name. And I look at it and I was just like, oh, okay. Well, and I explained like, okay, well, it's seat yourself wherever you want, just not on the rows that are blocked off. The amount of people that would look at a row that literally said row closed, and they would point to the sign that said row closed and said, is this row closed? Do you have any idea how hard it is not to answer that sarcastically or sound sarcastic? Like, yeah, I wonder what the giant sign is for. You have to be like, yeah, that row's closed for COVID regulation. But it's like, no, we put like just the amount. But and so this guy like saw it, or a guy was like, I was like, oh, it's general admission or whatever. Only place you can't sit is if there is a paper on the chair, and or on the other. And he was like, do you know who I am? I was like, I do not. And he said, do you know who they are? And pointed to these three people that I have no idea. And he goes, I don't want my artists to be bothered by just regular people while the movie is going on. And I was like, I just walked away. I literally was like, I'll be right back. And I just walked over to my boss and I was like, dude, you deal with that. I can't look at a grown person after so much has taken place in the last year and a half. That's how you talk to people. That's how you believe that you're nobody, whatever. And then I don't know, some other famous guy, Bach haha or something like that. Haha. I don't know. Everyone was, they were like, he's a YouTube personality. He's a TikTok star. And I'm like, God damn it. I am I wasn't good at this stuff when I was 22. Now I'm this age and I'm not good at this shit, but whatever. But he was like cool. He came in and like we only had 5 seats for him. And he had like 10 people. And I was like, dude, I'm so sorry. There's only 5. We only have 5 seats reserved for you. And he goes, oh, that's fine. Where else should we sit? And it was like, well, the balcony. It's just so funny that like the actual famous celebrities are way cool. And then the guy was like one line. It's like, do you know who the fuck I am? It's like, oh God. When I was on Dash, when Dash Comedy was around, there was Dash Radio had a grand opening of their new studio on Hollywood. They had this big ass party, right? And I had someone who was in charge of the show. I did not enjoy that she did this. I just don't. You know how if I say names, it means I'm going to say something nice. If I don't say names, it means I'm not going to say something nice. I'm not going to say anything mean. I'm just true, just fucking true. You know what I mean? I'm not really a shit talker, but like I'm not really like she's this, but like this. So this woman was a part of our show and was in charge of this sort of thing. And so she RSVP'd us to the show or to the fucking event. And we show up and there is two massive lines, right? One that apparently is for people who have shows and then one who is just like the general public. And the guy who runs Dash Comedy is inside. And he's a good friend of mine. And I texted him and he was just like, oh yeah, we waited in line or what. I don't remember what he said. He ended up coming meeting us for a drink, but we were like, we went up and asked, I was just like, oh, okay. I went up and asked, or the producer walked up and asked, the guy, in line, the guy taking, the door check guy, why can't I think the guy checking in people. And he was like, she's like, hi, we're with the Kim and Ken show. And he was like, okay, great. That's the line. And I was just like, cool. So I just kissed my microphone. So then I was like, cool. And I started to walk to the end of the line and she goes, I'm sorry, she has a show here. And he was like, yeah, that's the line. And she goes, we are SVP. Do you know who she is? And I was like, okay. And I grabbed her. Like, I was like, sorry, sir, we'll wait in line. And I looked at her and I was like, don't do that. And she's like, well, it's my job to. And I was like, no, it's not. Even if I become one of the most famous humans on the planet, I never, ever want to work with somebody who looks at a person just doing their job and says, do you know who she is? First of all, our show is like one of the least popular shows on the station, right? Like that show was that, and not putting down our show, but it was a massive station. And so like, it's like, what? Like, I promise you that fucking Too Short, who had a show on Dash, didn't walk up and be like, do you know who I am? And she's like, well, it's my job. And I was like, no, it's not your job. And if this show does blow up, I never want you to do that again. Never do that again. That's so embarrassing. That's so tacky. That's just like, I don't care who the fuck I become or who I am. It's just gross. And she didn't get it. She literally was like, I don't understand. And I was like, well, you're not the Kim or the Ken on the show. So when you are in charge of your own career, you can go ahead and be the person that does that. But while I'm in charge of my career, I'm not going to, it was just fucking tacky. And it's always the person that's no one. And I don't mean to say no one, you guys know what I fucking mean. So that was fun. Oh, it was really cool. It was really cool. The director went up and, talked about just he started his own production company and has bunch of movies out that he raised money for. Like, what is it called? Self-budget? I don't know what it's called. Self-budget? Financed on his own. I know there's a better word for it, but he financed on his own, raised money on his own, like self-shot, like didn't do a studio and just started his own company, his own production company. And now it's this massive thing. And so he's up there and he's talking and he was like, I was a person that was told no 7 trillion times. And I was told I couldn't do it. I would never make it. I would never do it. And he goes, and I'm sitting in a theater full of people that are probably told the same thing. You'll never make it. Well, guess what? Here we are, third premiere since COVID. We're packed out. Snoop Dogg's in the house. Snoop Dogg was on them. It was such a cool. And he was just like, just never give up on your dreams. Just never, no matter how, when people tell you no, go make it happen yourself. He said it much more eloquently. And I wish I recorded it. I probably could find it somewhere because he asked everyone to pull out their phones and record it. It was just really cool. And yeah, so that was like the poop scoop, why I need to go see a doctor and what I've done in the last few days, all wrapped up in one with a few sidebar. I don't know if I missed any stories I was supposed to tell you. I do have a new COVID thing that, like, I don't know. I think I'm having, I get the hiccups now, like just randomly, like not even like I used to get the hiccups if I ate too quickly or if I was drunk. And now I could just be sitting here, not even eating or drinking anything. And all of a sudden I just have the hiccups. And I don't know what that is. I think what your hiccups are is an irregulation in your breathing, from my understanding. So it probably has something to do with that. I don't know. I just wrote down hiccups. So I thought I'd share that. I did have some sad stuff happen last week. My friend died. I record. My friend died day after I recorded. I have a couple Patreon episodes that'll be coming out tomorrow, maybe the next day. I don't know, in the next week or the next few days. And one of them was about just like loss and people I've lost along the way. And then a new friend passed away, and his name is John. He is my best friend, Mark. Mark is my best friend of 20 years. I think I've talked about Mark a billion times on here. He is one of my favorite human beings. I like that guy is family. And he is Mark's other best friend. And so it's not only am I sad that, and also if you remember the pig story from a long time ago where he had a pig, a little baby pig, and then he went into rehab and then his pig died and then his friends just tried to replace the pig because they were like, he's getting out of rehab. We don't want him to also be sad about his pig. So they tried to replace the pig. It's one of my favorite stories. It's really sad because it is a dead pig. And then also John passed away. So they got to find humor in sad things, you know, otherwise, I don't think any of us would be able to make it out of the human experience. If we couldn't find humor in tragic shit, I don't think any of us would survive. But yeah, so then they like replaced the pig, but like with the wrong kind of pig. Like John had like a potbelly pig and like a miniature pig, and they replaced it with like a farm pig. So like a couple of months after John got a rehab, I guess this pig was just like gigantic. It was just like eating everything in his home, like cupboards and like parts of his couch was just like, and John was like, I don't know what to do. He used to be so cute. Now he's just this pig. And finally they were like, dude, your pig died while you were in rehab and it's just a random pig. I don't know, when I was told that story, I laughed so fucking hard. Sorry, like adjusted. So that's that guy. I know he went into cardiac arrest. He struggled with addiction and he was in a detox last week, and they gave him something to help him stay off something, and he wasn't supposed to drink on it, and he did. And he went into cardiac arrest, and Mark called me, and when he called me, he was on, Mark called me a couple times, and I was just like, he's just calling to catch up. And then he called the third day in a row, and I was like, something. And I literally was like, somebody died. And I was like, all right, I know this may sound really fucked up, but I was like, I know this is probably going to really upset me. I have 4 things I need to do before I find out who died. Right? I know that's so fucked up, but I just knew because Mark will call me once. And then if I don't call back, he knows I'm going to call him back when I can call him back. Right. And so when I called him back, John was on life support, but they had already issued the death certificate. And the only reason why he was on life support was so they could keep his heart fresh he was an organ donor, and somebody was getting ready to get the heart. And I was like, Mark, make sure they know that they're just getting like the best heart ever. Mark goes, I already told him. She's like, you're just getting the sweetest heart. This guy was like a Paris Hilton of Colorado Springs. I met him years ago. I met him like 15 years ago, I want to say. And I want to say like 15, 16 years ago, because I was really young. And there's a hotel in Colorado Springs called the Broadmoor, and his family's pretty heavily affiliated with it. And I'm trying to be as vague as I can because I don't know how much details is up, but he had just gotten sober one weekend when I was there, and it happened to be his birthday, John's birthday. And he had just gotten sober, like just got out of rehab, but it was like a thing that they didn't want to like release to the press because they were like the Hilton family of Colorado Springs, like they were, tabloids in Colorado Springs, the way it was described to me. And so, but we went to this bar called the Bee. I don't know what it's actually called, but I know that there's little like sticker bees that you like throw at people. I have one in my bathroom. The Golden Bee, I think it's the Golden Bee. And he I'm just like really, and so it was his birthday, and so he was like, very famous in this small town, and so people were sending him drink after drink after drink. And Mark, I've never seen Mark so drunk in my life. Mark and I used to party hardcore, and we drank a lot in Vegas together. This is the drunkest I've ever seen him, because instead of like just like John, someone would send John a drink, and he was just such a kind person, man. He was like the guy that I was always like, if we ever, like, I would end up with that, like that, not that I'm like, I would end up, but we were meant to be, but like, we just had a special bond, I guess. But he was just like the type of guy you want to end up with, minus the addiction problems. But it's always like, if you know any addicts, man, if you know addicts or alcoholics, they are some of the best souls you'll ever meet. And it's just so fucking heartbreaking, because it's just like, it's sometimes they just can't get sober. And it's I talk about it a lot on here with my mom, and a lot of people over the year. I know a lot of addicts, and there's just something special about them. I always think that an addict sees the world differently than we all do. And it's not, it's not as fuzzy as we think it is, if that makes sense. They just see more than we do. So or their brains are smarter or somehow, so he like would cheers the person and thank them. And then Mark would be like, I'll take that drink off your hands, man. I'm done with my drink. So Mark is just pounding these drinks that are being sent to John while trying to drink his own drink to look like there's one, I have this image that I'll forever have. Sorry, Mark. I don't think Mark listens to this. But and if he does, he'll vouch for me. But I have this memory, this scene of him, like we're walking down the street going to John's car, and Mark has this like yardstick of beer, and he takes a sip of it, and then he just like pukes in the snow. And it's like, and John's like, you can stop drinking. You don't have to take me. But he was doing it because he didn't want his friend to be outed, because he wasn't ready to say he was, in rehab or sober yet. Right. And so like John was the first guy for me. This is my John story. He was the first guy for me that we slept together that night. I was young, and I hadn't been treated very well by a lot of dudes, or I picked a lot of dudes that mistreated me. I don't like to be like men were mean to me, but I picked had a bad picker. I picked a lot of shitty men. Working on it still, that's what my whole book's about. Buy my book. But he was the first guy that I had romantic feelings for, that treated me kindly and protective. Like we were at another bar, I think called the Hatch Cover. I got kicked out of the Hatch Cover one Christmas. I got like 40 dudes kicked out of the Hatch Cover one night. That's a fun story, which maybe I'll tell after this, because we'll need a palate cleanse. But they went to the Hatch Cover, and this guy came up, and he was like being creepy and hitting on me. And it was just like, I was trying to get him to go away, and he wouldn't go away. And John came over and put his arm around me, and he was like, man, what's the problem? This is my girlfriend. Can you back off? And the guy was like, oh man, I'm sorry. And like walked away. And then like, we just like talked all night. I know it sounds really small. It's so weird, because it's just like, so he was nice to you, but like I was young, and I was only attracted to really shitty dudes. So this dude was so kind and so gentle. He was just so gentle. A lot of his Facebook posts over the last year has just been like, I know politics are a big deal. Like I know everyone's fighting, but then like, it was just like eloquently written about how we should maybe look at the other person's side, but it was not like, if he's racist, you should hear the other side of it. But I mean, just like, instead of like screaming at each other, maybe we'll hear each other more if we're like more, open. I don't know if I'm even explaining this correctly, or even giving how much this human meant to me. enough credit or enough, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but, and so we spent the night talking, and then we took Mark home, or Mark took a cab home. I don't really remember where Mark went, but Mark that was the drunkest I've ever seen Mark, which is Mark is top 3 favorite people, top 3, right? If not number 1, but, and so then we drove, and then he took me to a hotel, and he was like, we'll just stay in a hotel for tonight if that's fine. Cause I think I was staying at Mark's and Mark disappeared. I can't remember. I just didn't have anywhere to go because Mark was gone. So he was just like, we'll just get you a hotel room. So we go in the hotel room, and then, one thing leads to another. And we had like this sweet sex, like not like one night stand, bang it out. Like, what I like, sloppy, drunken. I mean, I wasn't really that drunk and he was sober. But it was just like sweet. And I hadn't experienced that really yet, with somebody that was, just a random dude. Maybe even yet at all, actually, if I'm looking back. Oh no, the diarrhea is coming back. Sorry, that's way to ruin the moment, Kralski. But yeah. And then we woke up in the morning, and he took me to breakfast, and we laughed, and it was like sweet, and I know that is like, I don't know. I don't even know what it is. It just, he was just sweet. And Mark's kids called him Uncle John, and me Aunt Kim. And it just, and then I don't know if this is I don't think this is the last time I saw him. I think he came to LA a couple of times with Mark, but one of the last times I spent, like alone time with him, the day Mark got married, John and I stayed at Mark's house, and and Mark and Ashley, his wife, stayed at the hotel, right? Like where they would, I think when you get married, you stay at the hotel. I don't know. You don't go back to your own bed, right? You like go somewhere special. And so John and John was sober, and I was, I was pretty drunk, and I tried to get all sexy, and he was basically like, no, you're drunk, and that is not something I do. Take note, guys, that's consent, right? He was just like, I wouldn't feel right about that. And I was like, don't feel bad about it. I want to do it bad. And he was just like, it was just really sweet. And we ended up just like cuddling and talking. And then he called me a cab in the morning because I was going to the airport at like 6 a.m. And he walked me to the cab, obviously, and put my suitcase in the car and kissed me, and that was one of my last memories of him. When I did get into that cab, actually it was an Uber, because Ubers in Denver at the time were like sketchy and cabs weren't, like opposite of LA, and the Uber driver on the way to the airport asked me if he could stop to pee at 7-Eleven, which was really uncomfortable and weird. And I was like, yeah, I guess, but I have a flight. And also, I don't know, it just like, as a dude, you're probably like, why? What's the problem? But as a woman, like, you're just like, no, I'd rather you just go where you're supposed to go. Cause like there's stories of like Uber drivers just driving into a parking lot and then, assaulting their passenger. There's like a whole lawsuit going on right now. Cause Uber and Lyft are like, I don't know. But so he goes to the bathroom, and then I like got out of the car and like waited for him to come back. Cause I was just like, I don't know what the fuck to do. So he came back from the bathroom, and then we were driving to the airport, and he goes, I was going to hit on you. I really wanted to hit on you, but then like, I decided not to, because like your boyfriend walked you to your car. It was just like, or don't do that. But I don't know. He was just a kind soul. And one of the hardest parts about this is I have never heard Mark so sad. It's like me losing my other best friend. You know what? It's just like, I can't even wrap my head around the grief that he's going through. He's in Vegas right now. I may go to Denver. I'm not sure. I might go to Denver just to be with him for a couple of days, him and his family. I don't, it's thing where you're like, is it helpful or annoying? Like when I had COVID, a lot of people were like, even Mark was like, I'll hop in a plane. I'll be there tomorrow. I will take care of you. It'll be fine. I'll wear a mask. I won't get COVID. If I get COVID, it'll be fine. You shouldn't be alone. And I was like, I'm fine. Cause like, like sometimes like people are like, will it be helpful or annoying? Like, and I'm like, will it be helpful if I'm there for you? Or will it just be like, you don't want to deal with a guest while you're grieving? God, I just can't even imagine what he's going through. Just like that's one of the big things that I'm sad about John, but of course. And I don't think it'll even really hit me until I see Mark, because that was like, I just can't. He was just so young. It's just addiction sucks, man. addiction fucking sucks. It's just really, and you're so helpless. So, send out your thoughts, prayers, whatever you do for my best friend and that family. She's so fucking sad. And he was like he was my age, under 40. And so goddamn handsome. So fucking handsome. Mark even said, he goes, he's laying here. He's brain dead. He's dead for all intents and purposes. Like the machines are working for him. He goes, I'm half tempted to take a fucking picture of him. He goes, he looks flawless. His skin is perfect. His hair is perfect. And I'm like, those are always things that you think about, but then you're like, that might be weird. And then later you're like, would it have been weird? But then if you do it, it is weird, right? Like I know somebody who took a picture of their father after he passed, and they were like, yeah, after we did it, it was weird. But he had like the sweetest little smile. So we took a picture of it. But then as soon as we did it, we felt weird about it. But then it's like, but if they didn't do it, they would have felt bad that they didn't do it. I don't know. That's a morbid, dark, thing. So let's do a palate cleanse. I'll tell you about the hatch cover. I don't know if I ever told you guys this story. I was in Colorado Springs. I used to spend Christmas at home, but I would usually spend the day with my family and then would need to go go down to Colorado Springs and spend it with my best friend and his family, right? So I would spend a lot of Christmas nights with Mark and either his family and then we go to his family's house. One of the first times I met his dad was like, you gonna be part of this family? You gotta drink some moonshine. So we all drank moonshine that his dad made, which is just fucking. That family is my family, man. Just such good people. So then we'd go to this bar afterwards. So one time we were at the Hatch Cover in Colorado, and the funny part is, I'm gonna tell this backwards because one time I was at Big Wang's. Like I'm gonna say like a year, 2 years later, whatever. I'm at Big Wang's. I meet this guy named Doug, and Doug's from Colorado Springs. It's like, nice to meet you, Doug. And he's like, nice to meet you, Kim. And then he goes, I feel like I know you. And I was like, oh, I don't know, man. I do sometimes go to Colorado Springs, but I don't, I Monument mostly, which is a little suburb of Colorado Springs. And I'm like, I don't know how we would know each other. Maybe we just saw each other at a bar or something. Like, I'm like, I don't know you. I don't know. And so like 20 minutes go by and finally he goes, I know how I know you. You're that girl that got like 40 dudes kicked out of that Hatch Cover on Christmas like 2 years ago. I said that so stuttery. You're the girl that got like 40 dudes kicked out of the Hatch Cover on Christmas like 2 years ago. We got that. And I was like, oh, you were there. So this night I stand by my actions. First of all, I was talking to this really hot dude, this crazy hot dude, so hot, so tall, so hot. I think I've seen him in commercials now because he did live in LA. So he was in town visiting his parents. Important for the story. Oh man, I was like probably 25. I don't know. And so I'm like picking my nose if you're watching on YouTube, which I haven't updated in a long time. I will soon, I promise. But so I'm hitting on this dude, and then I don't know, I think we like parted ways or something like that. I can't remember, but like then another dude was hitting on me. So another dude, so many dudes are hitting on me. So this guy's hitting on me and we're talking, and his tab comes, his waitress brings his tab over and his bill is like $63 and he gives the broad like $3. And I was like, ew, gross. That's not even like a 5% tip. What the fuck's wrong with you? And he goes, what? I'm not going to tip her. She blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, tip her. That's so gross. You're gross. Then he called me a bitch and a whore and stormed off, right? Or no, called me a bitch and a whore and then I stormed off. So I was a bitch and a whore for telling him he should tip a waitress. What a trash fire, right? I stand by all of this, sort of. So I walk over to Mark and our other best friend Stoltz. I walk over to them and I think I'm just telling a story. I'm like, oh my God, that guy over there just called me a bitch and a whore. And I tell him the story and I'm like, yeah, he was like, you're a fucking bitch, you whore, whatever, right? And I skip along my merry way. Don't think anything of it. So then I think I go and hit on the hot dudes. Hot dude and I are talking for a little bit. I like it. If I would have known that this story would have been important so many years later, I would have remembered the order of it, but it doesn't really matter. So we'll just say I went over and hit on the hot dude for a little bit. And then I was still smoking then. So I'm like, like probably 30 minutes later, I'm like, I'm going to go have a cigarette outside. So I'm outside, I'm smoking. And then I put out my cigarette and I go back in, and the bouncer's like, you're not going back in there. And I was like, why? And he goes, because you've been instigating fights all night long. And I was like, what fight? And as I said, what fight? Another bouncer comes out and is holding Mark in one arm and holding the dude who called me a bitch and a whore in the other. And they're like swinging at each other. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I did instigate that fight. By the way, now that like now we're more progressive. Fuck that bouncer. That guy called me names. I know Mark probably shouldn't have picked a fight with him, but it's just like, fuck off, right? But then I was like, hey, do you mind if I go inside and just like tell a guy that I was hitting on that I got kicked out? And he's like, yeah, that's fine. So I go inside. I walk up to the table that this guy's with all his friends. I have no idea. Like, I was cute, I guess. I guess that's the only explanation I have. So I walk over and I'm like, hey, drunkenly, I was like, hey, I just got kicked out of the bar. What a train wreck. I just got kicked out of the bar. Do you want to get out of here? And like, I mean, I guess like dudes are like, yeah, maybe the small chance that he might get laid, he would leave his friends, right? But like, if some guy came up to me and was like, I just got kicked out of the bar, you want to get out of here? I'd be like, gross, what'd you get kicked out for, right? I'd be like, no, I'm good. Train wreck, get out of here. Who gets kicked out of a bar, right? But this guy was like, yeah, let's go. So we go out. I know that Mark went with a bunch of people somewhere else. And I know that he like really severely sprained his ankle that night. That's all he really remembers of that night. He goes, oh, I fucked up my knee or some shit forever. Right. But I guess this fight broke out and like 25 dudes got kicked out, 40, 25, who knows? At that point, it's all the same number. So all these dudes got kicked out because some guy called me a bitch and a whore. My friend tried to defend my honor, however you want to twist that story. So then I go home with this really hot dude, right? This is the other part of the funny story. So I go home with this other really hot dude. And he is like, I'm staying with my parents because like I'm in town from LA. So like we're going to go to my parents' house. And I was, drunk and I'm like, whatever. So we go down in the basement where he's staying and it is a big basement room, but it's a bedroom. So there's like basement and then there's a bedroom that's huge that has 2 queen size beds in it, like huge enough that comfortably 2 queen size beds could be in. And I was like, what's with the 2 beds? And he was like, and this was like a mansion in Monument, Colorado, which is like an affluent suburb of Colorado Springs, right? So it's not like they were hurting for bedrooms. He's like, this is where my brother and I slept growing up. And this is where we stay when we're here. Like, this was our bedroom. And I'm like, why did you sleep? Whatever. And there's probably other stuff to unpack there. Who knows? None of my business. And at that point, I decided, which I often did at that age, which was just like, nah, I don't want to have sex with you. I'm going to just go to sleep. John, I did not decide that because John was very sweet and handsome and kind and gentle. This guy probably would have kissed his biceps while he was fucking me. So buy my book. There's some stories about that in there. Buy my book. A week from Friday, I believe you can do pre-sales. I don't know. I'm crying quite a bit and I'm really stressed out. That's probably where the diarrhea is coming from because I'm pretty stressed out, but it's all very awesome. So we don't even have sex. We sleep in separate queen size beds next to each other. He wakes me up in the morning. I cannot tell you this guy's name. I think it's Brandon or Mike or some shit. And I'm just like, oh no. I've got like a Santa Claus hat on, my fucking, and like a shirt. Like I'm all decked out in Christmas. My mascara is running down. And I'm like, are you taking me to my buddy's house? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, what was your name? So he takes me, we walk upstairs into his parents' kitchen, and there is his mother. And I'm like, oh no. And I'm like, hey. And he's like, Kim. And he's like, Mom, this is Kim. And then I was just like, oh, nice to meet you. And he's like, yes, she lives in LA. We're going to keep in touch. We didn't, spoiler alert. I don't know I think we tried briefly, but we were just very different people. He did hot people shit. And even though I am aesthetically pleasing to the eye, I've never been a person who does hot people shit. Like he was like, let's go to the club. And I was like, I don't play dolls anymore, but it's like the equivalent of like, let's drink beer behind the bleachers. And I'm like, I pee my pants and play dolls, whatever the adult Hollywood hot people version of that is. I can't think about what I did then, but I was more into like dive bars and, doing funny shit with Ali, but not like, let's go to the club. Clubs never, I went to some clubs in my early 20s, but they just never, just a big to do for like, vodka cranberry, whatever. But so we didn't really keep in touch, but man, was he hot. So I meet his mom. I talked to his mom for a little bit, and I was just like, well, Kim, I hope I get to see you again. She did not get to see me again. And then this guy drove me back to Mark's house, and Mark told me a story of his own where after he got kicked out, he like fucked up his knee. I wish I remembered that story. I'll ask him, and then maybe I'll report back to you guys, or all of us will forget about this moment forever. Yeah, that's a good palate cleanser. What a while. But moral of the story is Mark's my best friend of 20 years. Like, he is the first guy that taught me, like, wasn't raised around a man that treated that my dad did treat like my godmother and stuff. He did treat women with it, like, it's hard to say because it's not like he didn't treat them with respect, but it was definitely, I'm treating you with respect even though I think that I am superior. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not treating you with respect because I see you as equal. I'm treating you as respect because you're a lady. But Mark like taught me. Mark was like the first person too, like that I opened up about my drunk mom. As a young adult, he's an angel. He's an angel, and I my heart is broken for him. My heart's broken for me, but my heart's really broken for him. So kicked out of the hatch cover. Let's end on that. But that's the episode, guys. We did it. This is such like I am so. Here we go. I am one lucky broad. We'll do the I'm one lucky broad now because I'm so stressed out right now. Good stress, but there's just a lot going on and a lot like I'm telling myself, so I am self-publishing a book and I'm, I have an editor and I have a designer and all that stuff. But like for the most part, it's all just Googling trial by air. We'll see what happens. And like today I had like a meditation. When I was meditating, I had a moment where I was like, this is the first time you have ever published a book. This will not be the last time. This is the first time. So there will be hiccups. There will be literally there's hiccups, but there will be snags. There'll be things that you wish you would have done. There will be like you're doing as much due diligence as you can with research and reaching out to people who've done the same before you, but like it's okay if it's not perfect. And like so it's like a lot of the books coming out and it's really exciting. And I think like the guy who's editing it, the editor that I hired an editor, he has said that it's really enjoyable, really funny and really good, which is just so fucking cool. But so like, I'm really grateful because like, I'm one lucky broad because I have this massive thing that I'm really stressed out about. And I got to come in here and just, this is like fun. I mean, the book stuff, I'm trying to enjoy the process, but it's a little stressful and a little like overwhelming. Like I was trying to explain it to my friends, like whenever I'm really overwhelmed or stressed out, I just want to run down a street like Times Square where it's empty, screaming by myself like Tom Cruise did in Vanilla Sky. That's what I always picture what I want to do. That's like my visualization when I'm really stressed out, just like like all alone, whatever, in this massive place. I know that they were like, I don't know. They were like, yeah, no, maybe I understand. Right. Like they got it, but everybody has their version of what they want to do with that. But I'm one lucky broad that I have this podcast that I'm able to just come in here for an hour, relax, have fun, talk about whatever the fuck I want. And I've got these listeners that like never in a million years, I thought maybe like 2 people would listen every week. And a lot of you listen every week. And it makes me feel really special, really grateful, and really encouraged that possibly this big dream of mine that I have may not be totally crazy to have it, So that's why I'm one lucky broad. And that's the episode. I am going to read you a review because I am going to ask you guys to write one if you haven't yet. If you can subscribe, download, write a review, rate it, share it, all that stuff. It just means so much to me. And it helps like the podcast get further in iTunes. Like if enough people are I think I tell you this every week. So if you haven't done it yet, then please do. It takes like a second and it means so much to me. And I'm going to read one to you now. Just for gratitude for the people that have written it. This one is 5 stars. It says, Kim is a star. And it's from Hoop Sauce. Oh my God, I love this guy. Kim is a star. What a nice person. What a nice